Hi there, and welcome to the Creative Operations Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Groom, and in this podcast, we'll be talking with creative operations leaders in all kinds of industries, from franchising to finance, from healthcare to hospitality and beyond. We'll be looking to uncover best practices and to see trends that are coming to help you keep your creative operations on brand and on budget at the same time. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Creative Operations Podcast 2.0. I'm Kevin Groom, your host, and with me today is Melissa Merrifield. She's the Director of Marketing Communications at DMOS Orthopaedic Centers, and she's also the President-elect of the American Marketing Association Iowa chapter. So it's wonderful to have you with us, Melissa. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me on this lovely, amazing Iowa brisk day. Just brightens my week and they're starting off in the right direction.
That's great. Well, listen, our audience loves to start with a little bit of a sense of your journey in marketing and how that brings together strategy, creative, and also production around this notion that we have of creative operations. So tell us a little bit about how you've gotten to the place you are today.
So I've had a little bit of a great journey. I've got over 25 years of marketing experience, from everything from financial to creative to Yellow Book ads to Michelin Tire, co-op advertising. I've also owned my own business in graphic design, marketing, and printing. I've spent some time in the broadcasting industry working with the broadcasters, Nexstar, Tegna. And then I also transitioned to the Des Moines market as the television station brought me here as a media sales consultant. From there, I pivoted and went to a plumbing company where I helped them launch their Top Tech University. And that is where I found myself here in the world of medical. And it's funny, my dad always told me that I should be in marketing and medical. And I'm like, no. And I finally feel like I've found the right place. So it's been an incredible journey, and it's always been a foundation of building upon each platform capabilities and truly going after what it is that I know I'm capable of doing. And just I'm very passionate about marketing, and the light bulbs never stop. So when I can start connecting the dots and telling a story, whether it be from a content or data, I can talk marketing all day.
Oh, it's interesting, the range of experiences that you just touched on as you kind of walked through very briskly 25 years. But you touched on media. You touched on the vendor side, the agency side, the client side, production issues, strategy issues, and then most especially data issues, which now seem to be rising in importance inexorably over the past 15, 20 years. So it's really a rich pond of experience that you're drawing from as you work today. Quick question for you. You'd mentioned the fact that one of the biggest challenges in marketing today is delivering value through the marketing process to local communities. I wanted to get more of your thoughts on that, because very often, folks don't think of marketing as delivering value to the customer. They think of kind of it as a method of attracting and retaining interest from the customer. So talk a little bit about how community and value add is part of your thinking process.
So definitely leading with community first is a value added as you're creating experiences and partnerships and building relationships with your customers, the people that are willing to refer you, and building that out in a way that makes sense, whether that be a strategic partnership with a local high school athletic team, or looking to partner with local sports entities, chambers, building and delivering upon community first allows you to expand your resources, put your light bulbs together, and come together and put together big ideas, and alleviating on some of the strategic thinking, the planning, the dollars. And if you can come together with key partners that align with your core missions, values, and help elevate you just as much as you elevate them, it's a win-win situation in building those key relationships within your community.
The interesting point for me is so often in the work that we do at Pike and Nine, we see local marketing kind of sitting downstream of strategy and brand and all of that. It's just a common metaphor, I think, that we all use, thinking of something up here and something down here. But what you're describing is really strategy, insight, et cetera, can come from the local, either in an equally balanced way or maybe even sort of moving backward, back up that stream and creating for us strategic ideas from the locals up. I think that's a fascinating thought and not one we often hear.
Well, and it's also brand recognition, digital experience, and fostering that collaborative digital journey, visually seeing your brand, experiencing the brand, knowing what the brand and also being your own brand ambassador, influencer, and being the driver of who you are and who your company is in the community. That is what helps create those moments of experience, opportunity, engagement, and helping foster those long-time clients and customers.
So let me ask you another question that relates to the challenges of that approach. From an idealistic perspective, it makes perfect sense. But when you think about it practically, do you find as you try to build those presence in local communities, and I'm sure you've got a lot of them, that you run into problems of scale? That, how do you put yourself? How do you make sure that the message gets delivered, executed, and activated at that local level when you've got so many locals to think about?
There are a lot of locals to think about in those chapters, and it really comes down to how can you tie it back to your organization? How can you synergize the experience, the reputation, your expertise in the industries, and how can you synergize that and not being selective, but also being authentic in those community reactions, relations, and just really driving what it is your end goal is. And so when you think about a medical facility, I'm working with 30 individual providers. Each one has their own individual things that they're passionate about. So it's holistically coming up with a plan that aligns with who we are, our expertise, and elevating my doctors and surgeons and making that, because especially when you're in a medical space, where you don't always get excited about going to see the doctor or seeing that. But I can tell you that's part of the reason why I chose is just knowing that their willingness to participate in podcasts and be in the community and volunteer on those sports teams helps create a great foundation for just building upon that in a marketing, digital, and creating that experience.
It makes me wonder when you mention the number 30, and I think of you and your team as only so many heads, so many hands, and so many hours in the day. There must be a sort of a MarTech stack around which you're building all this to keep things in order. Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys, and I'm assuming your team is not infinite in size, probably pretty tiny, yes. Relatively speaking.
I will say that's where I love having. So I do have a great team of just myself and another individual. I love mentoring and helping them in. So we have a team of 2, but that's where the community partners come into play and building those strong relationships. Because if I do have a strong relationship with a radio partner or a media partner or a print magazine or all the different channels and avenues, usually there's some resources or things that I can use into that space and building that relationship. And if we build the content, how can I help you push it out? Or how do we help each other push that out in a way that makes sense? I'm very fortunate that I have a very talented young lady that's on my team. She joined as a graphic designer, and I'm helping her kind of learn the way in the digital space. But when it comes to data and driving data in a medical, there's so many stats and there's a lot of KPIs, and you have to really get clear about what it is your end result is and what you're wanting to come with. So we do use some software that allows us to really hone in on the patient experience from a medical experience. And once you have the data to back that standing that you are the experts in the industry and you are doing good things, it kind of changes the story just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. At Pike and Nine, we work in the regulated fields like healthcare and also insurance. And what we found very often when we're trying to empower locals, getting them the content that they need and in a form that allows them to use it for their purposes without inadvertently, transgressing some rule, regulation, or,
Yes.
requirement that the regulators have put upon us. That's been a real challenge, to make sure we put content at their fingertips, but they are using it appropriately. We found technology, helps a ton that way, locking down and opening things up so that they have the ability to change things, but not change things too much. Are you guys doing that kind of thing, or do you really?
Yeah, so I would say is definitely building the content, because then you keep your brand consistent in what you want, the vision, and how you push that out. But there's some entities that you may work with that may not necessarily have the time, the energy to create the things that you need. For example, we are proud to support a large variety of the high school athletes, and just energizing that experience. So if one team plays the other team and you go to the different stadiums, you get the same signage experience, you get the same commercial experience or hype video, but it's with your sports team and your community in it. But then you can also layer those in your digital experiences and how you push that out in those communities. So it's kind of that big idea thinking, and how else can we collaborate and put together these great pieces that make sense, but also give you brand loyalty, recognition, and creating opportunities to lead with community first.
Yeah. So it's interesting when DMOS, that logo is in a creative execution and it's sitting next to a local partner. Just even establishing, I'm sure, the balance of weight between those two things is a really sensitive thing and something that you have to think about on the fly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say definitely, looking very strategically also when you're looking at experiences, not just only, who's attending. Is it going to be visible on broadcast? Is there radio opportunities? Is there partnerships in which you can collaborate and tell the story in a way that people are going to respond and create experiences and be like, you know what? I have been to DMOS. I went there for my urgent injury. I went there. They're great humans. They take care of me when I need them, because not everybody thinks of an orthopedic surgeon, or not everybody's like, oh, I really want to go to DMOS today. So I think
be there when they need you.
Yes. And so I think that's truly, living by our brand, our mission, helping people get back to living, but it's also creating those amazing experiences out in the community that people automatically think of your brand and identify as, this is where I need to be.
That's great. So, in creative operations, we often ask really kind of functional questions, right? And so what you've been bringing up, driving down from strategy to those functions. Do you find that your local partners often come back to you guys because you're the folks who know how to do this and ask you to do lots and lots of things on a last minute, one-off kind of chaotic basis? Does that happen a lot?
Oh boy, Kevin, you're talking my language. We're talking NBA, G League execution done in like 3 weeks, the partnership. So those are the type of things that it's an amazing to get to be known as, that you can pull off and execute, and that you are that partner of choice. But I think in the world of marketing, we always tend to fly at our seat or our pants. And, there's been a lot of event planning. So my career actually I started working when I was 14. By the time I was 18, I worked for local Hy-Vee company. I did event catering, and that's back when we made things from scratch. So I did some event planning and catering and things that I created for thousands of people. Those are all skills and things that I still utilize in my career today, from event planning to coordinating. And, it's all about building really, truly strong relationships. And if I need help, or if I need something that I know I have the resources to reach out to and connect with and say, hey, I've got this great big idea. And Melissa, she never has any of these great, big, crazy ideas, but let's see how we can work through this. A couple of the things that I've done, I took our plumbing, when I worked for the plumbing company, we did a partnership with 8 different vendors and did a food drive. We raised over 22,000 pounds of food for a local food bank that I would not have been able to do had I not had those relationships and built the opportunity to partner with all these key individuals, including media, radio, TV, And just bringing all the elements together to execute on an idea of a week-long food drive, from the local grocery store to having a Saturday morning hot cocoa moment at the movie theater and having a drop-off location at the local mall where I had the plumbing truck with the big Santa hat on it, visually, like just creating all the pieces in that creative journey that create that experience, but produces that end result of, hey, we wanted to give back to the community in a big way, and we collected over 22,000 pounds of food.
That's, the scale at which you are able to, magnify or force multiply a very small team is something we talk about that all the time. And in the technology world where I spend most of my working days, the notion of systems being that repository, that single source of truth, whether it's a digital asset management system or templating system or combination thereof, those are working building blocks, right? But at the end of the day, the question is who is connected to those systems, and is the idea that's driving them all together actually having an impact? And the notion of 22,000 pounds of food from an execution born between those 2 ears and then executed across those many locations is proof positive. But let me ask you this question. When you look at all of that stuff coming together, you had mentioned to us in an earlier conversation about the importance of data and being able to read that data and decide what's working, what's not. I think the phrase you used was not just writing a check for advertising, but executing that advertising and that kind of relationship on the ground. How does data play into all of this for you? Because you seem like you're pulling from so many different places.
It's all driven by data. Data is the foundation of understanding your customer, your client. There's so many great resources out there, including Google in the world, that you can, once you understand how to work those and leverage those free resources to your advantage, and helping you make smart decisions and driving by data, understanding where your customers are coming from, looking at the analytics on a daily basis or weekly basis, and really, truly taking that data to tell the story and drive with content, experiences, and collaboration. You begin to make smart decisions with limited resources, or also executing in ways that if you didn't know the data and you didn't have the facts. So leading with data is definitely very important to understand. And I would say when I had the opportunity to sell TV advertising, and, we did both digital and your typical television experiences, I would say that was one of my most frustrating things when I sat down in front of a marketing professional or somebody who at these smaller companies, they'd invested all their dollars into this, but they had no clue if their advertising was working. So it was my role as, to help them, educate them, give them the tools that they needed to succeed, and also give them some free resources, understanding how Google works. And if you put a geotag in a location, that'll help you come up quicker, faster. And it ties into your Google AdWords and how it synergizes those experiences across the behind the scenes platform that gets a little scary sometimes.
Yeah. Well, when you mention education, I find that sort of a natural segue to this role you're about to start playing as the president of the AMA in Iowa. When you think about all these different marketers in your kind of service area, and then multiply that times 50, it seems to me that marketing itself has the same problem that marketing customers have, which is force multiplying, communicating a single consistent message to folks who don't have a lot of time to hear it. So tell me a little bit about what are your plans going forward in your role as president?
Well, definitely continuing to elevate others and mentor and help raise up the upcoming marketing professionals and creating those opportunities and experiences. I wish I would have had somebody earlier in my career say, hey, you might want to go just have one cup of coffee or a caffeinated conversation, like I like to call them, either caffeine or high energy, and connect and learn and grow with each other, because there might be opportunities in that space that you're not aware of, that if you just are willing to commit the time to a relationship, to learning more about others, it allows you to begin to synergize not only your own experiences, but also hone into where your passion meets your purpose. And when your purpose meets your passion, that's where the magic happens.
Sure.
And so I think those are all the things as I continue to move in and volunteer through AMA, not only just as a local level, but also on a national level, and helping just elevate other marketing professionals in the spaces that we do, and helping others be aware of our dedication and impact, not only to our communities and our industries, but also, being a leader in those spaces and helping others find their purpose and their passion.
Sure. And I'm just speaking from my perspective as a vendor member of, let's say, the AMA or the Association of National Advertisers, which was actually where we at Pike and I found our first customer. Very, very first customer was through an ANA meeting. And that notion of education and knowledge sharing seems like it's more important than ever, because the pace of change is accelerating. Even in the time, say, in the past 4 years, let's say the length of one college career, we've seen the entire marketing discipline go through enormous amounts of change. And that's during just one college career. The people who graduated, are looking at a completely different universe of possibilities and tools and systems than they saw when they first got out of school. So that notion of lifelong learning, just huge.
Well, marketing is definitely a career that is always evolving and changing, and you always have to be learning and be willing to learn and adapt to the worlds of Facebook and Google and advertising trends and changing and being in that space. So one of the things that really was a pivotal moment in my marketing career was when I went back to school at Mount Mercy College. At that point in time was college. But our senior project was to do all the research that allowed Mount Mercy College to transition to a university status, and giving that hands-on experience in a way that can be applied and leaves a mark, set the pace for not only having great mentors in marketing, but also that foundational level of creating something bigger and something that is in the world that's constantly changing and evolving, and how you can be that legacy person in the industry.
That's something we want to get behind with you. So as you keep moving forward with AMA in Iowa, I hope you'll look on us as a partner. Here at Pike and Nine, sometimes the tools that we provide can be useful, not just for the customers, not just for the clients, but for the purveyors and providers too. So I hope you'll think of us as a resource in that regard. And let me say thank you for taking the time today. Everybody, keep an eye on DMOS and Melissa Merrifield and the state of Iowa generally. It's going to warm up soon.
Yes. Kevin, thank you so much for the opportunity. So before we go, I do want to know, how did you get into doing what you do? What drives your passion?
Oh, my goodness. So, I started out a long, long time ago as a writer. So I was just a writer, putting copy together in a variety of industries, but then ended up, because no one else wanted to pursue this field, was technology. So I became a technology copywriter, and from that grew an understanding of technology that sort of set me a little bit apart and gave me an idea. I began looking at my own agency and saying, where's the pain? Where do we really feel the pain? And it was in the studio. It was in trying to take a big idea and deploy it across dozens or hundreds, sometimes thousands of different locations. And I found that a fascinating thing. And what was great and what I love about your team is that here we've got a strategist, and the right hand is a graphic designer. All these years later, Pike and Nine is coming up on 21 years old. All these years later, that fundamental connection of strategy and design, of brand idea and brand experience, it remains the heart of everything we do. And what we're trying to do is to force multiply that.
Yes.
That's really what gets me up in the morning. We were just talking with a team in England, a chain of fitness centers. And there I saw a strategist and a design designer, who were thinking about how to serve 100 different clubs and keep all those cats singing from the same, brand book. And that challenge, which was there at the beginning of my career, is there today. We're just solving it, I hope, with more powerful tools and changing tools. That's where I love this notion of, the AMA and education and mentorship as being vital. And one last thing I will say, I ran us over time, but mentorship nowadays goes two ways. Yes, the gray hairs like me may have some experience that would be useful for folks who are just starting out. But the folks who were digitally native and are bringing to us, not just a set of tools, but a set of expectations and understandings that, non-natives might not have, I think is fascinating. And so, I really support everything you're doing and really appreciate the time you took out of your day to be with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to future conversations.
You betcha. That sounds great. Hey, everybody, thanks, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Creative Operations Podcast 2.0. Thanks.